Hello, and thank you so much for joining me. Today is kind of a special episode. We will not be sewing today. Instead, I am going to put together the final boss grade Cortex kit of the Smart Doll Gaia. And I adore her. She's fantastic. The kit was such a learning experience. Oh my goodness. There were mistakes and bumps along the way, which we will go into. But without further ado, let's go. So, while I have never put together a Gundam, my husband has. You can see he's got quite the collection. Wait a sec. Huh. That's weird. So we start off by opening everything up, and yeah, that's a lot of pieces right there. Oh boy. So, as previously stated, I have not put together a Gundam kit. I flashed my glasses there so that you can see that while these little pieces go flying, they will not get into my eyes. I definitely recommend wearing some kind of eye protection. And I am just going through and cutting off all that excess plastic. There's a lot of it. And just as a heads up, I am definitely going to be cutting quite a bit of footage because this was an all-day event for me. It took a very long time. I am not fit to work at Culture Japan, clearly, but it was so fun and such a good learning experience. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there was some struggle and definitely at least one freak out. We'll get into it. But this part is extremely straightforward. I am going to cut past a huge chunk of it because you see what I'm doing. You just go through every single piece and you cut off that, I think they call it flash, and try to make it as nice and neat as possible, though all of this is internal, so I'm not entirely sure why I decided to try sanding it. I don't recommend those rasps, though, that I was using. They were kind of chunky and didn't leave a super nice finish, and you'll see I do just kind of abandon them at some point. You get much better results if you go in with a really sharp X-Acto blade or something, just to get rid of any excess that you might have missed in the initial snip. But yeah, let's skip ahead. Alright, so now I've got the pelvic piece, and they've got this just absolutely adorable little container full of the grease. So you put that on. And I do apologize, a lot of pushing the pieces on ended up off camera because I have zero arm strength and I had to really struggle, and it ended up a lot closer to my body and it was impossible to do under the camera, which was of course set over the table. The pelvis piece went on pretty easy and I moved on to the feet, and here I'm basically figuring out what I'm doing. I'd watched the videos, of course, but I was struggling, and here I'm figuring out that yes, absolutely, the whole needing grease on all of these pieces is not a joke. You need grease on all of these pieces. I'm also figuring out which foot goes, or which little peg needs to go on which side so that the feet bend in the correct direction and they don't overextend going forward. This is the part where I was like, oh no, what have I gotten into? Oh no, this is kind of tricky. Oh no, am I even going to be able to do this? This is like one of the first steps. What have I done? What have I gotten into? Oh my gosh. Ah, oh, it went in. Oh, thank goodness. And then we get to the first ankle. And I'm not kidding you. I have 15 solid minutes of trying to get the ankle piece to connect. 15 minutes! And that was only to the point where I gave up and turned the camera off because I was like, well, I clearly can't do this under the camera. And what ended up happening was I reached a point where I realized, I am going to either need to ask for help or be creative because I cannot do this. I can't. I do not have the strength for it. I am putting as much grease on as I possibly can. I am making sure it's straight and it keeps squishing in other directions, and I just do not have the strength for it. So I did decide to get creative. Eventually, what I did was put a towel down on top of a very flat wooden surface. I got a rubber hammer. It's got to be rubber because you'll leave dents everywhere if it's not. And I very, very, very carefully lined everything up to be super, super straight, and I bopped it really hard. Now, it didn't work on the first try, but it did eventually work. So, this is a point where I want to make it very, very clear. Danny is not joking around when he says that this is difficult. If you have like super fingers, okay, it might be an easy peasy thing to do. That's totally cool and kudos to you. I do not. I have not strong fingers and I have not strong arms, and this was a struggle. So take those warnings seriously, please. And like I said, I've got a lot of footage of this, so we're skipping ahead now. Alright, look at that, they're done. I wasn't able to get the footage of me hammering them with a rubber hammer, unfortunately. Now I move on to the foot piece, and I make a huge mistake here that takes me literally the entire day to figure out. So here I am counting out all my screws, and I used the wrong screws, and I put a screw in where it's not supposed to go, because you need one of the screws to remain out of the piece until it's actually in the outer part of the foot. So you're gonna see me just gleefully screw that in and not pay any attention to the fact that I'm being an idiot, and then later I will absolutely flip out because I'm missing 2 screws. No, I was not missing 2 screws. I used the screw in the wrong place. Yeah, that's the one. Don't put that screw in right at this point if you're doing this at home, because it doesn't need to go in and you will just completely freak out and think that you're missing a screw. This is also the point where I realized that I absolutely should be using a power drill instead of just trying to hand drill this in with the tiniest screwdriver of all time, because that was tricky. So we're going to skip past a lot of struggles just with the foot piece and doing it wrong. Alright, so those are done. Now we're moving on to the calf pieces. These were not such a problem, actually. These worked out pretty easily, and it didn't take me that long to figure them out and get them together. Though, don't be afraid to use the grease fairly liberally. Like, you don't want to accidentally use it all up and run out, but you do want these pieces oiled up. Oh, and here I have the power drill. I'm still using the tiny screwdriver though, which is a bad plan. You want to use a screwdriver that fits. I thought it was close enough, and it was a struggle. Yeah, getting the pegs in definitely probably needs the most grease out of everything. part of why I keep popping it together and then unpopping it is because when it doesn't close all the way, I'm opening it up and seeing, like, is there a reason? What's in the way? What's going on? You want to try to be as aware of that kind of thing as possible. And it is a little tricky because, of course, all of the pieces are solid. You can't really see what's going on in there. But the other part is just that I was so new to this that I had no idea what the material can handle, exactly what I'm doing. This is where I finally figured out that I needed a reasonable screwdriver, so I have to share the bit with between the screwdriver and the electric drill, so you'll see me pull it out, put it in the other one, pull it out, put it in the other one. It's the only one I had that was the right size, but you needed to use the right size. But we got the second shin done. There I was comparing gaps to see, like, one of them seemed like it had more of a gap than the other one, and I wanted to fix it. I might have over-greased these pegs. It seems like she's kind of super bendy in the pelvis area. It's not such a big deal though, she can still stand just fine. So I'm not too worried about it, and I'm certainly not pulling her apart to fix it. There's like the two flat sides, and at this point I was trying to figure out which direction they needed to go. So the flat sides need to be forward and back as opposed to left and right, if that makes any sense. It's just a matter of pushing it in. All of this was just a matter of pushing and knowing the limits of the plastic, which of course you don't when it's your first time doing it. For some reason, the top one gave me so much more trouble than the bottom ones. The bottom ones went in just fine, but the top ones were a bit of a struggle. Alright, so those are on. It's extremely squeaky, so more grease. And more. I don't remember if he greased the insides of the tubes in his videos, but I found it very helpful. And so I did it. That's what I got for you. And this is where I don't remember, I could not figure out what I was doing. Anyway, I figured it out. We got screws on the insides, screws to the back, and yeah, set that off to the side, and now we start working on the spine. And I did remember in his videos that he said to make sure that the shoulder blades do not have grease. So I did not grease them. And this is just me figuring out how they fit together. There was a lot of that. You'll see me get distracted too by other pieces because I will get fed up with what I'm doing and then decide to try to figure something else out, and then that goes poorly too. Yeah, this process was not intuitive, which of course he warned us. He said exactly that. He said that it's challenging. So I wasn't surprised. I was just processing. And now we screw those little guys in, being careful not to strip your screws or strip the plastic, and then tightening them with the hand screwdriver. Alright, now we got arm pieces. And at this point, I thought, there's so many tiny little pieces, I need to figure out where they all go. So I started organizing them just to see if I understood in my head. And I did. That was about it. There were a few pieces that needed a little bit of cleaning up, so I did that. And back to the grease. Grease the outside, grease the inside, grease everything. And we pop the... So every time I tried to do something and it didn't work right away, I was like, oh no, am I doing this right? And so I'd start double checking and stuff, and it made the process much, much longer. But that's what happens when you do something for the first time, and it involves finger strength that you just don't really have. And struggling. That was not so much of a struggle because there is the screw. Now, so remember when I screwed up the foot? This is an extension of that. The screw I am using is the incorrect screw. That screw is supposed to go into the foot. Instead, I put it in the shoulder piece, and it was too long, and it bumped the other side and made a weird little divot. And I was like, oh no, what's going on? Oh no! So I'm freaking out right now, because I forgot the shoulder piece is actually covered. You do not see this in the final doll, which I am grateful for, but definitely a mistake. That screw is too long. You need one of the 8s. The shorter, but not shortest screw. So I'm still blissfully unaware that I have done the foot wrong at this point. And I'm thinking maybe this was supposed to have gone in a different piece and I just missed it, but I didn't care enough to go back and fix it. So now we move on to the elbow piece. This little bean gave me some trouble, I'm not gonna lie. So I had to bop the ankle together with a rubber mallet. I had to do the same with this, but this is an awkward, weird shape because the one end of the bean is smaller than the other end of the bean. So I ended up putting the towel down and then putting another layer of towel just under the short part of the bean, and then spending like, I don't even know, 5, 10, I lost track of time, minutes bopping it together until finally I had it lined up right and it went through. It was something. I'm glad I found a method that worked, but it was a challenge and I know I did it wrong. You're supposed to just be able to push it in with, I don't know, Hulk fingers. And we're gonna skip the video of me struggling because, yeah. Alright, so the beans have been popped into place and now onto the wrists. I, fool that I am, thought that the wrists would be easier because they're littler. This is not true. They're not easier. I don't know that they're necessarily harder, but they're not easier. So squish those into place. Struggling. Oh, also, I don't know if you've noticed, but throughout the entire video, I grease something up and then touch it a bunch of times, and by the end, I was just covered in grease. Luckily, it's high quality stuff, and like it doesn't smell bad or anything like that. It's just it was everywhere. When I switched to the outer shell part, I definitely had to go wash my hands because I did not want to get her outside all greasy. And I kind of wiped down the frame too. The little wrist pieces, I was actually able to get to pop into place the correct way. It did absolutely take some struggle, but I got there. This was the point where I was like, sweet, these parts are going to be simple. I know how this works. And I was completely wrong. Again, every time I thought I had a handle on what I was doing, it was like, no, this is going to be more difficult than you thought it was. At this point, I was second guessing myself again. Like, oh no, have I done something wrong? Is there a reason that this piece will not go in? No, it's a tight fit. It's an extremely tight fit, and you need a lot of muscle to get it to go in. Another thing to keep in mind is you want everything lined up perfectly straight, and it's just hard. I was also cursing the fact that my Q-tip couldn't get all the way in there either, because it had helped so much to put grease on the inside of the leg pieces. But no, this one is just, once you get it in once, it does become easier. That I can say for certain. However, getting it in the one time takes effort. I did not have to resort to the rubber hammer on this one, but I did actually have to resort to laying on the carpet and not crying about it, but, you know, feeling very mournful while I struggled to still put it together on the floor of my workroom like a sad sack. So keep that in mind if you want to get the final boss kit. There was a lot of self-reflection happening at this point. That's why there's nothing happening up here. I am literally laying on the floor, very concerned that I have once again hit a potential stopping point. But do not give up. Keep going. You can do it. See? Look, once you get that first little piece in, the rest just kind of wiggles in really easily. It's the first piece that you gotta pop in that's hard. Now that I've got both of them, because of course I did stop recording because it was just taking so long, I've got both of the elbow pieces in. Now it's just getting the wrist joints in. And of course, this again, I thought, oh, I popped these off of my existing smart dolls, no problem. No problem. It was still harder than I thought it would be, but it was easier than the, you know, upper elbow part. And this was the point where I was like, oh my god, the frame is done. Yay. So let's clean up. And let's move on to the outer shell. And of course, video is deceptive. I took like a 2-3 hour break in between this because my hands hurt so bad. So for the outer shell pieces, I did start by popping everything open, and I kind of sanded it with the little, it's not really sanding, I don't think it's sandpaper, but the little sponge kind of has a rough side and a soft side. So I used the rougher side to go over and get rid of all the shiny spots, and then the soft side to kind of buff it nice. I eventually stopped doing that as I was going and just decided to do that on the final doll because I was getting impatient and I really wanted her to go together. We're going to skip past a lot of the buffing because it takes a while. Alright, so now we're pulling out the shins from the pelvis, and this is where I regretted not going back and watching the how to Cortex video again because I could not figure this out. I'd put it in, I'd pop things, but the bottom piece just was not closed all the way. Well, it's because I was doing it wrong. The knee is fiddly a little bit. You gotta get it popped in a lot farther than I thought it needed to be. It's not hard to do, it was just a matter of knowing that I needed to do it, and it took me a while to figure out. So we pop ahead to the eureka point where I'm like, okay, knee goes in, push, push harder, push even harder. Oh look, oh, it looks like it fits. Oh, hey, it's nice and smooth. Excellent. Awesome. Thank goodness. This is also the point where I realized I needed to leave off buffing until the end because the process of putting this thing together was adding new shiny marks. They're really easy to get rid of. I don't mind them at all, but yeah. It was just extra work that didn't need to be done. Oh, you will notice I am doing a dry run. No glue, because I don't know if you saw me with the grease, but like I am a hot mess with anything like glue. It's bad. So. Oh, and you can see me cheating a little bit. There's Danny Chu's video off in the side there. Yeah, I watched that many, many times. I did not use the zip ties either because I thought I'm probably going to glue her in the future. The far distant future, hopefully. But yeah, so I can pop her completely apart if I really, really want to. And I probably will. I'm kind of hoping that clear, transparent, or like frosted pieces become a thing because this particular character is going to be an android and she will absolutely want a really sweet, cool, like transparent leg type or transparent arm backs or, you know, some kind of android upgrade. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. I didn't want to glue it. You could see me figuring out which shin goes where. Just by looking and seeing how nice they looked. This piece was giving me a little bit of trouble, not nearly as much trouble as the thigh piece did, but it does take some careful lining up to get all of the bits that need to slide into each other to actually slide into each other. You want to make sure the leg is completely bent first to get the knee part in, and then completely straight to get the back of the calf in. It just worked the best for me. Now this, oh, not quite yet. We snipped off those little pieces that Danny says you can snip off because they kind of get in the way. And because this was the bust piece, I did try to clean it up a little bit nicer than I had been. I don't know if I'm going to use a vinyl bust on her or not. I have Kanako, who is a Smart Doll Sana. Sana? I don't know. Oh god. I don't speak Japanese, so it makes knowing how to pronounce things a little tricky. Anyway, she is a T-skinned girl, and she has a different bust than the default bust, so I have an extra vinyl bust laying around that I could probably use. We're getting, oh, yeah, see that extra bit that I trimmed off? That wasn't supposed to happen. Now we're getting to the bit where I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my goodness, I am missing a screw. No, you idiot, you're not missing a screw. It's right there. It's right there in the piece. Stop looking. Oh god. Okay, so we're gonna skip the freak out and move on to the arms. This bit is pretty straightforward. We're just trimming off all of the extra and trying to make it nice because, again, these are outer pieces, so they are going to be moderately visible in some cases. I don't know that you'll actually ever see that curve there, but whatever. These ones you'll definitely see, so I did fix that one up a little bit. Here I am figuring out which side goes where, and oh hey, that popped in. Oh, that was easy. This is the one time it was actually as easy as I expected it to be, and I started feeling suspicious, like, oh no, what have I done? And like I said, it's much easier to do. And honestly, I think it's easier to do within the arm as well. I feel like the outer pieces of the arms actually stabilize being able to pop that guy in. This one was a challenge, and I don't know why those wrist pegs just hated me, but I ended up greasing them like 3 or 4 times. And they're still pretty stiff, so it's a good thing that she has easily removable hands and I won't be needing to pull those pegs out because I don't want to ever do that again. So in those pieces go. Push, push, push. Trying to push on the table. It's a bad idea. I don't recommend it. It never worked when I tried it. We get the bust piece on, which is really just a matter of making sure the spine is super straight and then just wiggling it a lot. It goes on pretty easy. Alright. And we're gonna buff a little bit. I'm still like completely convinced that I'm missing screws. I actually emailed support about it. I'm so mortified, guys. I'm so sorry, Smart Doll support, for wasting your time. I just asked them, like, hey, I don't expect you to send me screws to North Dakota because, like, that's ridiculous. But could you just tell me what kind of screws they are and I'll buy them here? So at least I wasn't, like, demanding, I guess. No, I'm still mortified. There's no coming back. Anyway. So we turned the camera back on after I realized my mistake, and I realized that the screws that I used in the shoulders are the ones that need to be go into the foot. They need to be the little bit longer ones. So I swapped those to be correct, and then pop that bottom foot into place. And now we gotta fix our arm, because of course I had to take that all apart. It is much easier to put the upper arm piece on when it's not connected to the lower arm piece. Honestly, if ever I was tempted to glue pieces, those are ones that I would want to. I can see that it's under a lot of stress compared to some of the other seams. It doesn't look bad, and of course this character is going to be an android, so who cares? Like, she is supposed to have visible seams. It is a part of her thing. So I'm not too worried, but I think somebody who did not want their character to be an android and wanted those to be less than visible absolutely would need to glue it. We're just doing the other foot piece now, popping it in. I don't know why the second one gave me so much more trouble than the first one. I was actually starting to shake at this point because I was so just embarrassed and nervous and like, oh no, we're hitting that last final stretch. I'm gonna mess something up and break something irreversibly. Oh wait, it's fine. Oh, okay, cool. Get that other foot piece in, which again, the second foot just gave me all the trouble. Did not want to pop in at all. I'm hoping I didn't cut too much of that extra lip off. I think the foot pieces are going to stay in pretty okay. They seem pretty firm. Grease up that extra foot peg. And I did not let myself take her head out of the bag. I actually had to, because I was just touching grease, go and wash my hands there. And This was the big reveal, and I'm freaking out right now because she's so pretty, you guys. This is my first Mirai sculpt. Can you believe it? Anyway, on goes the head. She's just too cute. I'm not over it. I am going to put her in a cute little dress that I made out of, well, an altered Requiem art pattern. I changed it a bit. I had a very specific idea in mind, and it worked out great, but really I just wanted something quick I could get her into so that we can put her wig on and say hi to the world. As I'm getting her all ready, I had some final, like, closing thoughts on this. I was so glad I did this. I really am. Like, I yell at myself for my mistakes, but I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm super, super grateful that I was able to do this and put this kit together. Will I ever do it again? Absolutely not. No. Nope. I think the difference right now is like roughly $50. It is 100% worth it to me to pay $50 for someone else to put together that frame. I talked about laying on the floor, right? Like, I was upset. I did not think I would be able to do it. I did, and I'm so glad I did. But, oh my gosh, like, I've seen people talking about these kits and being like, I don't know what the fuss is about. It's not that hard. And like, maybe for them it's not. But it was hard for me, and it might be hard for you. And I kind of wanted to warn people about that. Like, he's not joking. It is a challenge. If you don't have the finger strength or the arm strength, it's just not easy. But thank you for joining me in this adventure. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more.